Hey, we're back with part 7 of our video series where I am teaching you how to build a WordPress website from scratch using Kadence. Of course, we're going to be doing it workshop style. And in this video, I'm going to teach you how to customize your site-wide header. That is the navigation bar that goes at the very top of every website that users will use to orient themselves around your site. So it's really important that we nail this. And there's actually 2 different tools that I'm going to show you that you could build with Kadence. You can either use the theme route where we're going to use the header builder within the customizer of the theme settings, or you can use the brand new blocks feature that we just launched called the advanced header block. This is a revolutionary tool that you can use to build your own site-wide header within the Gutenberg block editor and be completely independent from any theme that you are using. So even if you aren't using the Kadence theme to build your website, you could still follow along on this tutorial to get a custom looking header on your site. And there's more. I'm going to be sharing a bunch of best practices for your website navigation tips along the way. So I hope that you are excited for this tutorial and you're ready to get started. So in the previous video, we just set up the homepage design for this Happy Tails shelter. And when we were doing that process, we realized that we no longer needed the transparent header settings that were turned on. Now, all I did in the previous video was I went into edit the homepage, and on the page settings, I set the transparent header to be disabled, and I need to change that back to default. I'm going to click on save, go back to our header and refresh it. And this is going to show you that the transparent header is actually still in effect. And I want to make sure that my homepage is using the default settings so that when I come into the customizer settings, which I can just click on right here, I could choose this customize option from that admin toolbar. This will pull up the themes customizer settings. Then we can go down here to where it says header, and under where it says transparent header, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off and click on publish, and now we'll have the regular header that we can work with. So the transparent header is really beautiful when you want to create like a seamless look, but in our case we don't need that, so we're turning it off because we just went in a different design direction. But you can totally use this tool if you want to, and you can customize it by playing around with the settings. So I'm just going to click on the back arrow, and before we get into customizing this whole thing, I want to go over a few basics for you. So in the header, you're going to see a panel on the left-hand side and a panel on the bottom. So the panel on the left-hand side are your general and design settings, and you can see all of the elements that you can drag and drop onto this visual builder that is down in the bottom. And this is a really handy tool because if you wanted to drag and drop the logo from the left to the center, you can do that just with the click and the drag of your mouse. So I'm going to leave my logo over on the left-hand side, but I just want to again illustrate and show you that you can drag these elements around to create multiple layers to your header. Now, this obviously is not a good design, but I'm just showing you as you do that, more options become available to you. The first thing you want to do is click on the gear icon on any of these elements that you want to customize. So for instance, if we want to customize this logo, we're going to click on the gear icon. I would like to make sure that we actually have our real logo and not just the words typed out. So let's go over to upload file, select the file, find the actual file from our browser, and I'm going to choose select. Now on the cropping, it's cropped enough, so I'm going to go ahead and click skip cropping, and our new logo should show up. However, it's showing up with the logo and the title, as you can see in this example. So I just want the logo to show only, so I'm going to just select this logo option, and I want to increase the max width. So I'm going to probably bump this up to about 164. I think that looks pretty good. Now, the next thing you can do is click on the gear icon for the next element that you want to customize. So let's go into the primary navigation, and here we can actually select the menu. So when we click on select menu, this additional menus view all locations shows up, and you can choose which menu you want to select. Now, if you are unfamiliar with where to edit those menus, typically you would go into your WordPress dashboard, appearance, and menus, and this is where you can set up your main, your secondary, or any other menus that you want. That's the traditional classic way to build your menu. But if you go into the customizer, you can click on edit menu and you can actually do that directly in here as well. So if we want to click on add items, we know that we probably don't need the home page because someone can just click on the logo and go back to the home page at any time. That's a pretty common use case, user experience. So you don't really need the home page on your navigation. The next thing we can do is click on adopt a pet. That's an option, or if I do that though, I wonder if that is going to go to the right page. So let's click on publish there. And if I open this in a new tab, where does that go? Yeah, it goes over to our adopt a pet feature. I love it. So we do want this page. So about, adopt a pet, connect, and events. I can drag and drop the elements around if I want to reorder them. I can also click again to add other items. You can add pages, posts. We're using the GiveWP plugin, so you could add donation forms. We also created a custom post type called pets. So if I wanted to pull specific pet profiles, I could add those here. Events, same thing, categories, tags, and then these additional taxonomies go with our pets up here. So if you're following along and you're doing this exactly, you should see this. But if you are using other third-party plugins and tools, or maybe you have your own custom post types configured, your settings may look a little bit different than mine do here. But that's okay. These are just all of the options that you have available to put links into your menu navigation. So for now, I think we also want to do the volunteer, maybe even the get involved, the donate, and I think that's pretty good, but I want to rearrange these. So on the get involved, let's do volunteer underneath that. And since I'm nesting it, I'm just going to drag it and drop it and make sure it's like one tier down underneath. So volunteer is up there. Ooh, what about fostering? I wonder if the foster is in here. I may not have created a page for that actually. So let's create a new page. Let's do foster, go add. And we can make sure that that is up here too. So we have the adopt a pet, get involved. We can do foster, volunteer. We can put our events underneath there as well, contact and donate. We could add the donate underneath unless we really want to call that out as its own. So let's see what that looks like here. So if I publish this, so we have about, adopt a pet, get involved with foster and volunteer, donate, contact, and events. Kind of think I want to put the contact as well under the get involved, or maybe even under about. Get involved, foster, volunteer, contact. So we have 5 menu items and we have 1 button here. Now typically a best practice is to keep your menu navigation items to about 7 or less. And if you can do the less, the better, especially if you're trying to focus on conversions on your website. So if you confuse, you lose. That is the slogan from Donald Miller from Building a Story Brand. And so anytime that you're adding in more fields that someone has to sort through and sift through, you're making the user do more work, burn more calories on your website. So if you can, try to keep the most important elements at the top and then use your footer as the junk drawer, so to speak. So if you really don't have a reason to have the about page or the contact page in your header, you could definitely remove those and put those in the footer if you really wanted to keep it focused just on the main ways someone can get involved by working with you, for instance. So I am fine with the way that it is for now because we do have less than 7 items in our whole header. But again, just keep that in mind when you're working on your menu as well. The more information you try to give someone, the more it is for them to burn calories to figure out where to go. So streamline that and simplify that for your user if possible. I understand not every website can follow that rule. There are mega menus, there are reasons to have a lot more content on your header, but as a best practice for most small businesses, that's a good one to follow. Okay, so next I want to customize this button. I don't want it to say join now. And so we can go in and start playing around with it. Now, because we're in this screen, we've kind of lost that visual builder on the bottom. So another really cool feature that you can do is you can hover over that button, and anytime that you see this little pencil icon, you can also click on that and it will pull up that visual builder again and the appropriate settings panel on the left-hand side. So if you can't figure out where it is on the bottom, definitely check that little pencil icon at the top in the actual visual area. Okay, so clicking into this Join Now option, we want to change that label to say Adopt adopt-a-pet. And on the URL, it's adopt-a-pet. And we can choose to open this in a new tab, but I don't think that's necessary. We could also set the link to no follow or give it the sponsored attribute or set it to a download. I don't think we need any of those, so we'll leave those alone. The button styled, we could set it to be filled or outlined. The outline, I don't have the border set up appropriately, so that's the reason why you're not seeing that outline. We'd have to go into the design tab and change that. I'm happy with it being filled, so I'm gonna leave it as filled. And then you can also change button visibility so that everyone logged out or logged in users can see that only. We want it for everyone. Now, we could also go to this design tab and change the button size. So right now it's set to custom, and we can change the padding here, or we can modify the colors, the borders, the border radius, font, shadow, etc. I'm pretty happy with the way it is right now. It matches the rest of our buttons on our theme fine, but feel free to customize the design as you see fit for your instance. Okay. So let's also say we want to add something else. You can also click directly into the row and you can add something. So let's say we also want to include a search feature. Let's go ahead and add that option and it's going to show up. Now, if for some reason it's not showing up, it's probably because the search icon is set to white. As a reminder, we did have a transparent header where all of our options were white previously, so it's probably inheriting those settings. That's another really cool thing I love about this header builder within the theme customizer is that if you style something and then decide you don't want it anymore and then add it back, it's going to remember all of those settings that you had previously configured, which is a really good thing, especially if you want to change your header for different sales or different promotions, things like that. You can add elements, remove them, and when you bring them back, they all work just as they were previously. So let's go in and change this. We're going to click on this little gear icon for the search icon, and you can see that there is a label. We could add a label that says search, but I don't think that's necessary. We could choose one of these icons. It's kind of a thicker outline and more of a thinner outline. I'm fine with what's there. On the design tab, we should change this so that the search icon is a different color. So it wasn't set to white, but for some reason it was recognizing it as not being there. So once we refreshed and re-clicked the new option, it showed up for us. So we have what we need. I think I want to go with maybe this lighter purple color. And when someone hovers over it, you can see it still goes to the blue color. I don't love the search being at the end. So let's click into these 6 dots and drag and drop that over, be in front of the primary navigation. So there's a search, about, pet finder, get involved, donate, and adopt a pet. I think that's looking pretty good so far. So let's go in and actually click into this guy and see how it looks. So this is giving us a full interstitial where the entire page is overtaken by the search bar. Now, if you don't love this color, we can come down to where it says modal background and we can actually reduce the transparency so we can see some of the items left behind it there if we wanted to. We could also change the color altogether. So if we wanted this to be this lighter purple color and maybe drop the opacity just a little bit as well, that could work too. So it's really a matter of your design preference. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it on this lighter purple color. And for our text colors, we'll make sure that they are the darkest color possible, and just so that it's easy to read for accessibility reasons. So I think that's looking pretty good. We can click on this X in order to go back, and let's click publish to publish those changes. Now, let's say you wanted to add a banner. Let's say maybe it's a season where you want to clear the shelter. So we could go ahead and click up here onto this top row. I'm going to click the plus and I'm going to choose HTML. And on this little icon, I can come over here and write some text. So it could say, clear, help us clear the shelter. And then we can say, all adoption fees just $25 through November 15th, something like that. Now, this obviously isn't the best look, so let's go and change some things design-wise. So going over to the design tab, on the font, let's click into here and drop this down to about 14 pixels. You really need something pretty small. Now on the line height, 1.4 is fine. I'm gonna actually drop that to 1.2. And on the link colors, we will have the blue color and the blue hover. Now let's go back into here again and let's actually link this. So let's go ahead and say, help us clear the shelter. Clear the shelter. Help us clear the shelter. So let's maybe hyperlink this to go over to adopt a pet or any other page we wanted to on the site. So now you can see that link color shows up in the blue, whereas previously you couldn't see because I didn't have that link in place. Now going back to the design tab, we can also choose for the font to be a specific color. So let's actually make this white. And the reason I'm gonna do that is because I now want to click into the top row. So do you see how there's a gear icon in the top row? We can choose that, and now we can change this top row background to be a much brighter color. So we could choose for this to be like that blurple color, although that bright blue doesn't pop off very well, so we would have to modify that. But I think this is a pretty color that helps us showcase that there is an alert at the top of the page. So let's keep it that way, but we need some padding around this. So let's go ahead and lock this in, maybe give it about 20 pixels all the way around. Let's unlock that actually and drop the top to about 12 and the bottom to 12 as well. And let's go back into clicking into the HTML, the design, and let's again update the link color. So let's just do this like light blurple color, and we'll hover it with white so that someone can see when they click into it. So that's a nice way to add a banner. Now just keep in mind that when you're using the customizer, this isn't something that a user can click the X on. This is a permanent fixture on the site. So keep that in mind. If you would rather have a banner that pops up, even if it's at the header or in the footer or on the sidebar or wherever, you can use that with the Kadence Conversions plugin. That will allow you to do pop-ups and banners with additional dynamic features like exit intent or after someone's been on the page for a specific length of time. So what I'm demonstrating here isn't necessarily a full-featured like pop-up thing. This is just a static banner that's going to go on your header, but you can choose this to be on or off during certain sale periods or promotion periods if you want it to be site-wide. So if you wanted to get rid of this, we could also click on the X and it goes away. And as I mentioned before, if we want to add it back, we just click on the HTML and it reappears. So I love when I'm designing my client sites as well as my own sites, I love designing it with a banner in mind and then removing it when I don't need it. And that way, anytime I'm ready to implement one, I just click it, change out the text, change out the link, and I'm off to the races. So keep that in mind as you're building your site. So let's go ahead and keep ours up for now. So it's gonna say, help us clear the shelter. And we have a pretty good looking header. So you can, again, go in here and play around with all of these settings to your heart's content. You can change the row settings. You can change all of the elements. You can move the elements around. So let's go ahead and publish all of the changes for this header. So once you are done with the desktop option, now you can click on the additional tab that says tablet and mobile. So there are two separate headers for your customizer. There's one for desktop, one for tablet and mobile. And usually the one on tablet and mobile has some sort of trigger. I'm gonna click into this gear icon and it looks like a little hamburger menu icon. I'm gonna use this thicker option. Again, let's go over to the design tab. It's set to white. Let's change that to this dark black color, and the hover can be that blue. So it's still loading here for a minute, but once that loads up, it should be looking pretty fine. I'm gonna go ahead and publish these changes. I'm gonna hop out and then get back in. Sometimes the site my site's glitching just for a second there. Okay, so now that we can actually see how big it is, I think this needs to be reduced. So let's drop this down to about 20 pixels, and let's come over here and to the general tab and maybe make that a little bit thinner actually. I think I prefer that. If we wanted to, we could say menu, and there's the little tag that shows up as well. Now I am looking at this on the tablet view, but you can also click over to the mobile view and you can see how that impacts it. So because mobile's a lot tighter, I'm actually gonna leave the word menu off, but it's up to you on whether or not you want to do that. Now, you can set the size controls for each of these elements on your actual device view. So right now, this is doing the icon size and I'm on the tablet, but I think I'm gonna actually bring that up to about 30 pixels. And on this logo, I also want to drop this size, maybe back down to about 150. I think that's looking pretty nice. Now, this main row feels like it's got a lot of height, so it's set to minimum height of 80 pixels. Let's drop that to about 60 so it takes up less space, and I will click on Publish. And then I'm going to pop over into this mobile option here, and just a quick tip for you. As you are designing, we start at the desktop level, and then it automatically inherits those settings from desktop into tablet, and then it will inherit from tablet into mobile. So as you can see, I don't have to do as much customization since I just customized the tablet view, because the mobile view is inheriting a lot of those settings. But you do want to make sure that you are looking at every device view so that you do optimize it so it feels pixel perfect to the user when they're on each device view. So I'm going to come in here to the main row, and on the design tab, I'm going to try to modify these padding settings. It feels like it's pretty thick on the right and the left. So let's go ahead and add 12 pixels all the way around there. And let's see how that looks. Sometimes it doesn't always reflect. So at times you might have to click on this publish button, get out of it, and then again, jump back into the customizer. So let's go into the header, back into mobile, and now you can see all of the padding that's around it. So I think I might have overcorrected here and gave it a little bit too much padding. So let's come back into this main row and go to the design tab, clicking again on mobile, and let's reduce some of this padding here. Let's go 8 and 8. And I think that's probably going to be a little bit better. And then on this trigger, we can also choose to go to the design tab and drop this down to about 24 pixels on mobile. I think that's going to look better. Now this again is kind of being a little wonky, so let's just click on the X there. And when we preview this, so let's go inspect. I'm going to right click and inspect this and then see what this looks like on an actual iPhone. You can see how it looks. So it's looking pretty good there overall. When I click into it, now we have this little drawer that pops out. Because we have this drawer, we probably need to customize that as well. Let's come back into the customizer, into the header, into the mobile, and now we can also click on this little off canvas option. So this is new. This wasn't something that we had available to us in the desktop version, but when we click into this gear icon, we can see that we can either choose this to be a full width. Let me click into it to show you. Full width, which goes all the way across. It doesn't feel like a drawer. It feels like it's taking up the entire screen. Or we can just do the side panel. We can also choose to have it go left or right, and we can choose to play around with more settings, alignment, things like that. I think I like the side panel going to the right. It looks fine. So let's just go over to the design tab and change the pop-up background. So I'm actually going to choose this to be a little bit lighter since this is, you know, bright and fun website. So I'm going to use our second to lightest color palette. So then I'm going to click into the mobile navigation now on this gear icon, go to the design tab, and make sure that our actual colors show up. So now let's click on the dark color, and then on our item divider, let's go ahead and make this the third lightest color. And I think that looks pretty good. Let's also change this font size. So on mobile, we want this to probably be about 15. On tablet, we can probably make that about 16. And when someone clicks into this toggle, it drops down even further. I love it. Let's click on publish there. And let's come back over to our website. Let's preview it. I'm going to inspect that, and it should show us back again in the iPhone 12 Pro. When I click into it now, it feels very light and airy. Now, one thing I am seeing is that this X is white, which may not meet our accessibility standards. So let's come back into this off canvas, clicking on that gear icon, go to the design tab, close toggle colors. We are going to make that this kind of blurple color. So let's go ahead and publish. So that's pretty much all it takes to customize your site-wide header using the Kadence theme customizer settings. One thing to keep in mind is that there are a lot more features inside of this tool that I wasn't able to go over just because we don't really need it for this specific build that I'm using as an example. For instance, if you want to create a mega menu, that's possible. If you want to have conditional headers, that's possible. The transparent header, that's also possible. all within this one tool. So if you are using the Kadence theme, I highly recommend the header builder. It's a great built-in feature. But there is another way that you can build your header on WordPress using Kadence, and that is through our advanced header block. So let me dive into a quick little tutorial and show you how to set that up now. Okay, so now that we are going to build a completely different header, what we need to do is go over to our dashboard, and we're going to hop into Appearance and Elements, because we need the Hooked Elements feature in order to replace the entire header. So we're going to come up here to where it says Add New, and I'm going to choose that option. And it's going to pop up with this Element Setup tab. Now this is going to say, do you want to choose a content section, a fixed, a template, or the HTML editor? For this case, because we are using a template part that is going to be global across the site, we want to choose the template option. So let's choose that here, and let's give this a title. So let's do header, and I'm going to do blocks as the title there. And down here, we can click the backslash, and we can start typing in header. And we want to choose the one that says header advanced. And you're going to see this nice little pop-up here that says your header selection. So we can select an existing header. If we had already had some previously saved, those would appear here. We don't have that, so let's just go ahead and click on this Create New Header option. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to call this our header, and I'm going to write in parentheses that this is blocks. And I'm going to say this is my header built with blocks. This is just for your informational purposes on the description. It's just so that if you have multiple headers, you'll know exactly which one is for what purpose. So let's choose this next option, and then we see this desktop layout. So there are some pre-built layouts that you can choose from. I love seeing them in this wireframe format. So on the basic, you can see that the logo's on the left, the menu items are kind of centered, and then we have two buttons. We also can see on basic 2, the logo is on the left, and then everything else is left justified between the menu as well as a button. I think this is the one we're going to go with, but let's see what else we have. We can also choose to have the logo in the center, as well as some split options on either side with a button. We also have a toggle plus the logo and some menu items, and there's a whole bunch more. I won't go through every single one. So I think this option number 2 is exactly what we need, because we're just going to recreate the exact same header that we just did in the customizer, but I want to show you how to do that in blocks. So let's choose that option. Now that was for desktop. Now on this next screen, it's going to also show you the tablet and mobile layout. So would you like your tablet to look like one of these 4 options? I think the mobile 2 is the closest to what we had previously set up, so let's go with that option. Once you click into those, it's going to pre-populate with all of your details. Now you can click through this. It's going to give you a little wizard explaining how it kind of works. I'm just going to go through that really quickly, and I'll guide you through that too as we walk through this video. So now in this block view, you can see if we open up this panel over here on the advanced header and you drop this down, you can see all of the elements that we have to work with. It functions very similarly to the way that we had developed the Kadence customizer in the header builder. So it should feel like a very familiar experience, except this right here, this document overview, showing you how to click into certain elements. And now your editing panel, instead of having your settings on the left, all of your settings are going to be on the right. So if I wanted to edit the site identity, which is the logo, I can choose this gear icon, and as you can see, it pops me right down to that appropriate section. I can go over to the Style tab. Let's click into this logo, and I can change the image width here. So let me click on this X to remove this document overview so we can actually get a better view of how this looks. So let's bump this up and increase that to about the 164 like we had previously done. And then now if we click into the advanced navigation, the same way that the customizer previously had that little pencil icon, this one doesn't have a pencil icon, but you can click into any of these elements and it will automatically pull up the settings in order to configure it. So I can come in here and click on main, and I can choose this import option, which is going to import the actual header into this area. And it pops up with this additional navigation builder. So now you have a more intuitive layout as well in this view, and you can drag things around. So let's say I wanted my contact to be above events. It's just as easy as the previous way I just showed you. so that you can easily move things around. So I'm happy with the way that this was already previously set up because we already customized it in the last video. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Done Editing, and you can see how all of that looks. Now, I think I want to increase the spacing here. So let's open up this document overview again, and let's go up to this middle row. And we have the item gap of extra small. What happens if we go small on that? Or even medium? So this is just controlling the gap between these elements. If I click into this gear icon, you can also see that there's horizontal item spacing as well. And you can use these little toggles to drag and drop these around as well here. So I think I'm gonna go with 1.8, that seems like a little big. Let's go 1.5 and click on save and save again. And now we've kind of already started to customize some of the elements. Now the next thing I want to do is let's go ahead and give this row, so as I'm clicking into this row, it's also highlighting this. I can go to the Style tab and make sure the background color is set to white, because on our actual one, it's going to have, the hero section is going to be a different color, and I want there to be a differentiation between those two. So we've got the background color set. Let's click into this button as well. Now this functions just like any other button block does. So it's amazing. It has the fill, outline, or even the theme. So if you had previously configured your block defaults, the block defaults should already be in here once it's loaded. It's really beautiful. So I'm gonna go ahead and choose the theme. Let's change this text here to say, adopt a pet. And we'll make sure to go to adopt-a-pet, and when you are adding a button link, make sure you click this little submit arrow, otherwise it won't take. I've made that mistake too many times and I'm like, why isn't this button working? Okay, so then you're going to click on save and save. Now all we've done so far is edit this, and I'd love to just preview. How is this even looking on the site right now? So before we can preview this, we need to go over to the element settings and we need to tell it where we want it to be placed. So underneath placement, we are going to change the option to say replace header, which is the first option. So click on that. And if you were to click save, you might be thinking, I'm ready to go. And you're not, because underneath the display settings, you also need to say, well, where on the site do you want it to go? Yes, it's going to replace the header, but on what page or what template part? So underneath show on, I would rather this show on the entire site. So I'm just going to click on entire site, and let's go ahead and click on save. Okay. So next, let's go back over to our area. And this is the way it was previously set up. And now if I click on refresh, it is doing its job and it's taking over. So it is looking a little bit better, but I do think that this spacing that I added might be a little too aggressive. So let's come back in here and refine that. So I'm going to open up this document overview. On this advanced, I'm going to drop this down to be like 1 EM in between. I'm going to save that, and I think that spacing is going to be a little bit better. The other thing was the font. So previously I had that set to our heading font, and I really liked that. So let's come back into the Navigation Advanced, go to the Style tab, Typography, and under Font Family, I'm just going to choose to inherit the heading font. So it feels a little bit more refined. And let's go ahead and save this again. Now, the other thing we want to do is include that banner that was here. So let's go ahead and click on this plus sign. And because it was just a piece of text, we can just add a text block right here. Now, we don't want this to be an actual heading, so we'll just set that to be a paragraph. And then we can do the exact same content that we had previously. So it said, help us clear the shelter. All adoption fees are just $25 through November 15th. I can't remember if that's exact wording, but it's something similar. And we had the clear the shelter was hyperlinked. So let's go adopt-a-shelter. We're going to click on this little arrow to make sure it's hyperlinked. And on this header row, I'm going to click on this little icon, go to the Style tab. Remember, we had it this like blurple color. So let's make sure that's enabled, and I want to give this some padding on the top as well. It looks like there's some padding on the right already. I'm just going to link these and make them have some extra small padding. Actually, let me unlink those, and on the top, let's make that about XX. which is, I think, 8 pixels at the top. Okay, so then we need to click into this block and change the color to be white. On the General tab, Link Settings, we can change the color here as well. So we can modify that so that when someone hovers, it's got the right effect. And we will save this. And then from here, I think I also want to adjust the size. So let's drop this down to about 14 pixels. I think that's going to look a little bit better for us. And let's save again. Now let's go back over to our site and let's preview. That is looking much better. So as you can see, this is already a really simple, easy way to also build your header too. And it's using blocks instead of the theme. So let's go back over to the element hook. Looks like we are off to the races here on the desktop, but on tablet and mobile, we need to set that up and configure it too. So on this block row, I'm going to go to the Advanced tab and I want to increase my padding a little bit on the top. And on the right, I'm going to have that set to be small. So this should work for, again, both tablet. Well, this is actually only tablet, but it should automatically inherit as well on desktop. Now let's go over to the Style tab and let's change the background color to be white. And as you can see, this now has this off-canvas trigger also has a background color. So we didn't have that on the previous one, so let's eliminate that altogether. I'm actually just going to take that down to 0, which will make it transparent so that if I were to set this to white and then later I change the background color, I'm going to have to do it 2 setting changes. So it's just easy to knock that background color out altogether. And then on the color, we are fine with it being this dark color, but on hover, I want it to have the overlay. And I also do not want this to have a background on hover either. So I'm going to eliminate that too. Now let's go back in here. I think the small might be a little aggressive. So let's just do extra small here on the mobile view. And then on top, I feel like I need to adjust that here. Okay, so I'm going to click on Save and save that. And let's go back over here and refresh and let's inspect this. So now it is working just fine. Although we haven't customized this little panel that's pulling out. So let's go ahead and do that now. So on here, when we click on this off canvas trigger, you can see that we have, actually let's open up this document overview. This off canvas is actually what we want. So we have the off-canvas trigger and also this off-canvas. And the off-canvas area is where we're going to manipulate the background as well as the page background. So you can make this look like it's got a dark overlay here, and we can set this to be like 0.8. And so now it's matching more of the design colors. And on the background, we had this previously set to the 8th color palette. So let's go ahead and set that there as well. And then on the close trigger, we previously had, let's see, color is down here. Let's set that to the same color we previously set it to. And on the Advanced tab, actually, let's click into these options. So you can also choose to have your own separate mobile menu. I don't have anything like that, so I'm just gonna go ahead and import just what we had previously. It's gonna pop up, that's fine, we're done editing that. That looks good. So on this Navigation Advanced, let's scroll down. Orientation, we want this to be actually set to vertical instead of horizontal. So that kind of looked a little funky there for a second, but I think just with that little change, that's optimized it immensely. And then you can play around with the spacing here. Let's go to the Style tab, Typography Settings. I think on mobile, I think I want to do 15 pixels, and then on tablet, I'll do 16 pixels. Let's go back to the General tab, make sure that's vertical too. And it looks like the off-canvas trigger style also needs its own color. Ooh, that's so fun. I didn't realize that we can have background colors independently from tablet and mobile on this block. See, there's so many fun things you guys can learn and explore as we explore this new block. Okay, so that's fun. And I think the only thing we really should adjust anything further is the orientation. So if I come to this General tab on this off-canvas setting, you can see that we have it set to hide. The display settings are sliding in from the left. We want that to be on the right. And you can choose the content alignment. You can make it in the middle, on the top, etc. I think that's good enough for now. Let's also make sure on mobile that it's doing the same thing. Great, and let's save. Okay, site has been updated. Let's go and refresh this. So now if I click into here, you can see it's got the full design that we just implemented. So that is all that it really takes to customize your header. Now, again, as I mentioned in the first demonstration, this was a really simple tutorial. So we have a lot more documentation if you want to learn how to build even more robust headers. But this is a great beginner tutorial for anyone who just wants to get started with a pretty simple header. The templates that are already in there that are pre-built presets are super helpful so that you can really just get your site up and online without too much fussing around. But if you want to create a totally custom header, you have the capability to do that within this tool. So I think that is pretty much it for this tutorial. As I mentioned, there are two ways that you can get started. You can either use the Kadence theme or you can use Kadence blocks to build your header. Now, even if you are using the free version of either tool, the theme or blocks, you can use the header builder in both instances. If you are only using the free version of the Kadence blocks, instead of setting it as an element and importing it that way, let me show you one other thing that you're gonna have to do, and that is underneath your customizer settings, you need to come into your header. So let's go into the header. And do you see this option where it says enable the block header? If you choose that on and then select your header blocks, that will take over the header that you want to build. You don't necessarily have to have the element hook feature in order to use this. So this is available within the free version, but it just has some limitations. So it's enough to get you started, especially if you're a beginner and you don't have a big budget, but also if you're ready to customize and take it to the next level, I highly recommend upgrading to a Kadence bundle so that you can take advantage of all of the features within Kadence blocks. All right, that's it for this tutorial. I hope that you found it helpful. And of course, if you have any additional questions, be sure to reach out to our support team. They can guide you through any troubleshooting or tips that you may need along the way as you customize your own header. And in the next video, I'm gonna be showing you how to set up and configure GiveWP, which is a donation plugin that nonprofits can use. And it's a really handy tool, so I'm gonna go through the setup of that so that we can start accepting donations on our site. So stay tuned for that in next week's video. And until then, I hope you guys have a great time customizing your Kadence websites. Also, be sure to hit that like button and also subscribe if you haven't already. And if you need to, go get caught up on the rest of this entire playlist. Talk to you guys next time.